sort of these white power groups and trying to figure out what they want, or examples of government action. And so I'm gonna throw out the case of this guy. You're not responsible to memorize any of this stuff. I'm just throwing out some things, and then I'm interested in what you have to say about this guy. And so your opinion is welcome here. Okay. So here's this guy. His name's Charles Schenck, and he was a socialist. Now, does anyone know what that means? Go ahead.
It's a form of government where everything is, I think that's communism, where sort of the government kind of controls everything.
Yeah, so in a socialist system, the government owns the basic things in society. Medical care, owned by government. Schools, owned by government. Transportation, owned by government. A shoe store, privately owned. That's not a basic essentially, but everything that's basically essential is owned by government, but you own your own property and you own your own candy store, right? If the non-essentials are privately owned, the essentials are publicly owned. Go ahead.
So would like a grocery store, would that be owned by the government, or?
It's gray, isn't it? Right? So it's not black and white, right? Anyway, this guy believed in greater government role in the economy. This is, historically speaking, sort of seen as anti-American because we believe in private ownership of things. Although to say an American can't believe in communism is silly. You can believe wherever you can be a Nazi for all the nation cares. Go ahead, be a Nazi. Just don't, wipe out Jews. That's the part where the government says, no. So again, this guy, he believes in some things that most Americans just don't believe in, but that's okay. He has that right. So this is during when the United States was at war. And so there's a draft. What's a draft?
Basically when you're 18 and you have like legal documents, the government has your name and your location. And if there's a war, you can be sent.
It's close.
If there's
the U.S. has that. That's called selective service. Those of you who are turning 18, you'll be getting a letter in the mail soon. Still mails only, but that's not a draft. What's a draft? We haven't had a draft since Vietnam. Very good, right? So it's when you're forced to join the army or the military, right? And he believed, this Charles guy, he believed that that was wrong. So he sends out a little brochure. He mails them out saying, if you're drafted, do not honor the draft. Don't do it. Break the law. Rosa the situation, right? And he made some kind of interesting arguments. One is the draft is a form of slavery. Because what is slavery? Come up with a definition of slavery, someone, not him. Yes?
Being forced to work without pay.
Yeah, against your will. Isn't that the draft? Isn't that the draft? I'm forcing you to work. You don't want to do it, but we're forcing you to do it anyway. That's the draft. That's what he said. Yes?
You get arrested if you don't?
Yes, you absolutely do. Yeah. Yep. Okay. And he said, hey, people in the draft, don't do it. Okay. And he got arrested. He gets arrested. This is during World War I. He gets arrested and he says, wait a minute, you can't arrest me for simply saying what I think. Those brochures are a form of free speech. That's the First Amendment. And the draft violates the 13th Amendment. Constitution's on my side, says Charles. Okay, hello. He makes it to the Supreme Court. Okay, I'm not going to tell you what the Supreme Court said yet. What I want to know is, from you, how many of you can identify, you know what, he's got a point. And I'd like to hear arguments what those points are, and how many of you are saying, nah, he's wrong. This is all gravy. This is all frosting. Does anyone understand what I mean? I'm using metaphors right now. The conversation we're about to engage in is frosting. Yes.
It's basically the tip of the iceberg. It's like before the actual stuff.
No. Yes.
It's very gray.
No. Thank you for participating, though. Anyone else?
It's
What do I mean? It's good. It's delicious. That's true. It's not required. You don't have to participate, right? You don't have to have dessert. You have to eat your broccoli, but you do not have to have dessert. No parent says, eat your cake. It's like, yeah, that's what I want. Okay. If you don't want to participate in this conversation, then don't. But if you do, I will reward you. Now, I can't call it extra credit. Ding! But suddenly, that one test that I thought you got those questions wrong, they'll be right now. So, would anyone like to argue for or against Mr. Charles Schenk? Either he's right or he's wrong, and why? Go ahead.
I'd say, for his points, I'd say that he's right in some sense. Like the whole point of the military is to defend America, and all of it's like volunteer. But the draft makes it non-voluntary, which if someone wants to spend their life here and not like get shot at or do work for the army, they're forced to, and if they don't participate, they'll be arrested. So I can see in a way that it does kind of violate the 13th Amendment. I don't have the 13th Amendment in front of me, so I can't.
13th Amendment outlawed slavery.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Fine. We'll move on. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I think that the right to free speech he was partially correct on as well, because he wasn't forcing anybody to do anything. He was just telling them that he didn't think they should go to the draft, telling them what they should do. And people do that nowadays, I think, with protesters who protesting abortion, telling people not to get abortions, making brochures, telling them what's wrong with it, putting it on people's cars and everything.
Do you agree with that? I'm not saying do you agree with abortion, but do you agree that the right to voice your opinion is perfectly okay? Very good. Good. Thank you. Go ahead.
I agree with the statement that he has like a right to like tell people his opinion and stuff, because like people nowadays like go house to house like asking for like something religious or something. I forgot what that's called, but like he's basically doing the same thing, but
You just had two people last week rang the doorbell. I thought they were selling, I don't know, these little cards. It was a little mom and her daughter, and they had these books in their hand, right? And so, why are you on your phone? You know what I just said? Oh my God! From this angle, it looks like your phone.
I was so confused because you're staring right at me.
All right, I'm wrong.
So I was like, what?
Anyway, and I thought they were going to sell me stuff, and they said, we're here to just pray with you. Please leave. So I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
But they had every right to do that, right? And by the way, I have every right to tell you to get off my property. Right? I have the right to do that. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone think he's wrong? Oh, so I'm going to argue against the 20 of you. So when you have to drive 55, that's slavery, huh? But you want to drive 56, but you can't. Do you yell to the cop that's giving you the ticket? Slavery! Nope, it's the law. It keeps you safe, and it's not slavery. If we're in a war, if the United States is at war, those soldiers are being asked to do something. Maybe it's against their individual will. Too bad. Right? Our nation's at war. How many of you right now are exactly where you want to be? And what I mean by that is in school. Like you're thinking, I love school. Can't we go in the summer? Are you slaves? Are you slaves? You're being forced to do something against your will. Are you slaves? I don't think anyone in here would say, yep, we're slaves, all right. We had it as bad as the slaves. No, I don't think so. Okay. And as far as the First Amendment freedom of speech thing, do you have the right to open that door and scream fire? No, you don't. No, you don't. That is not freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is where you express your opinion. But let's say that we're at war and you exercise your freedom of speech to argue that the United States, and let's say this war is against, I don't know, China, and that you're spreading the rumor that the United States military eats baby Chinese children. Baby Chinese children is redundant. The U.S. Army eats baby Chinese. Okay? And as a result, fewer people join the Army because they don't like the taste of Chinese children. Is that freedom of speech? No, that's not freedom. You're a liar. They don't eat Chinese children, as far as I know. So Mr. Charles here is arguing two things that you could argue, no, it isn't. It is not slavery. And that is not freedom of speech. What do you got? By the way, you don't have to agree with what I just said. I might not even agree with what I just said. Come on, hit me.
I disagree with what he says about like the drafts. I think that like it'd be fine if they have them in order to like keep the country like what's best for the country, you know.
Okay. Would you welcome a draft again? Do you know there's no draft? There is no draft. There is no draft. But you guys, once you turn 18, you have 1 year to register with something called selective service. You have 1 year, and that's in case there's a draft again. But right now, there's no draft. Okay. The conclusion was, think about Vietnam, right? During Vietnam, there were draft burnings and all this stuff, and those people that were forced to join the Army, are they good soldiers?
No.
Heck no, they were sucky, right? Well, part of it is because they didn't want to be there. So let's make an all-professional Army with only people that want to be there. Pay them well. Let's train them well. And we haven't had a drafted Army since Vietnam. So we're going on, 50-ish years of no draft. And our Army's the best on earth. Like, without question, we have the best military on earth. Okay. Do you think, though, is it possible that your generation has lost a sense of service? Right? You're all about you. That's what you are. You're about you, making money and looking at your phone. And you've lost this idea that you're part of this thing called America, and that you should throw in your 2 cents. Has your generation lost that? I'm not answering that question. I'm simply asking. Okay. What do you think? Is your generation the me generation? You don't have to answer. You think so? Any other thoughts on the matter? I saw you raise your hand before.
Like on this or
Yeah. Either way. Whatever. What do you want to say?
Well, I'd say for sure, yeah, a lot of us have lost like patriotism because like especially just little things. Like I see people, they know the Pledge of Allegiance going on, they just keep walking by. Just little stuff like
What do you think of that?
What do you mean?
What do you think about that?
I think they should stop and say the pledge. And get, like,
What about someone who actively chooses to not stand during the pledge? What do you think? What if they believe that that's a form of free speech?
I don't like it, but if that's what they want, this is America. I think if that's what you want to do, you should be able to do it. But I don't.
So
like
what
it.
about the guy that just keeps walking during the pledge?
I think that's disrespectful.
But you just said that they should have the right to do it.
I think they should have the right.
You have the right to do it,
They
but
don't want
you don't
to.
like it.
I don't
But
like
you have the
it.
right to have opinion, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the ironies is that there are those that say I think you should say the pledge, right? Now, do I have the right to have that opinion? Of course I do. I have the right to have that opinion. You have the right to have your opinion. I have the right to have my opinion. By the way, that might not be my opinion. Okay. Mark, before I call on repeats, I want to call on Pete's. Any more Pete's? She's a repeat. I've heard from her already. Any Pete's? People I haven't heard from yet. All right, repeat. What do you got?
I don't think our generation is so self-centered. Because I think a lot of us, especially I don't know, people that go to rallies, people that protest, people that have opinions who are progressive, trying to change things for the better for minorities,
All right.
something like that.
Anyone else? Yeah, repeat.
I'd say that it really depends on the subject, but in terms of patriotism, I feel like our generation is set up to create sort of a new generation of patriots because we're like we have some of the best school systems now than the last generation, and then the next one will. What I'm saying is, I think the kids of the future will have a better understanding. And I think us right now, because we have to take civics, we're learning that a lot of people don't vote because they think it doesn't matter. So I think a lot of people think, well, maybe I should vote because I think that does matter, how someone who leads the country should be.
If a lot of people don't vote because they don't think it matters, just imagine if you're one of the few who do vote. Suddenly your vote is worth a lot because a whole bunch of people aren't voting and you are, right? There's a referendum today. Anybody 18? Do we have any 18-year-olds in here? You know you can vote today? You should vote today. I'm not telling you to vote yes or no, but do you even know what the vote is about today? No? It's about this building. This building. I'll explain to you exactly what's going on. And then, man, if you want to go vote, go vote. If that referendum passes, everybody's taxes goes up a bit, like honestly, like $10 or something like that. And this school will be gutted, like that middle part where the library is will be gone. And instead they'll have big open areas and it will be ready by next fall. So you know this schedule that we have, this crazy flex mod schedule? How about having a building that sort of reflects the schedule, right? Like large gathering areas, small gathering areas, cost money. Now, on the other hand, there are people that say, you don't need to revamp the school for the schedule. Schedule works just fine with the building as it is. So vote. I encourage you to go vote and get your parents to vote. All of you get your parents to vote, right? I make a bold prediction here. So Somerset's a community of about 3,000-ish people. You watch, the total vote after today will be, the winning side will have like 300 votes. Total. And it'll win or lose.
Do we have to live in Somerset to vote on it?
Yes. You have to live in the area. Do you live in Hudson?
No, I live in-
Richmond. Yeah, you can vote. Any other thoughts? Bold prediction here. This is where I'm going to ask you to boldly predict. What do you think happened? So either the Supreme Court sided with him and allowed him to continue to voice his opinion, or sided with the government and said, nah, this guy has the right to be arrested. All right, raising of hands here. How many of you believe the U.S. Supreme Court sided with him? Not one of you. Okay, I'll ask the question. How many of you believe it sided with the government? The government has the right to limit your forms of speech sometimes. It's one or the other. Okay, well, let's see. You are right. The Supreme Court sided with the argument of the government, had him arrested. The Chief Justice was this guy named Oliver Wendell Holmes. Did you know that freedom of speech is not an absolute right? An absolute right is you have that right no matter what. No matter what. But you don't. You do not have freedom of speech no matter what. You can't yell fire. You cannot go down to the principal's office and say, Mr. Potter's selling drugs again. No. It's not true. And by the way, prove it. So you do not have an absolute right. Sometimes your rights are violated. Do you know that you have this thing called right to privacy? Right to privacy, right? Is it absolute?
No.
Nope. Cops have the right to search your car. What if the cop pulls you over and says, open your trunk? Can you say no? And then the cop's like, okay. I mean, what if they actually think that there's something in there? Can they have it opened against your will?
Yeah.
Yes, as long as they have a court order. Or yeah, as long as they have a court order. Or let's say there's no court order, but all right, so the cop pulls you over, open the trunk, and you say no. And then suddenly you hear banging from the inside of the trunk. Does the cop say, sorry, kid, there's nothing I can do? Hey, I want to go home.
Reasonable cause, right?
Right. If there's probable cause, the cop can open it. But here's where it gets a little iffy, right? So this just happened. This is crazy stuff, right? You wouldn't even be able to make this up. Guy gets pulled over, is accused of drunk driving, does all the sobriety tests, fails it. So gets arrested, is taken to the police station, does a urine test. Urine passes with flying colors. It's clean. So the cops are like, that can't be right. He could barely walk. He couldn't even do the whole test thing, which I've done, by the way. No, I was not drunk driving. They randomly pulled cars over and they'd be like, yep. I'm like, why? I didn't. Okay, I did the whole thing. Anyway. And they searched his car and they found urine in a bottle. They found urine in a bottle. Okay? And so they're like, you poured that urine. You snuck it and you poured it into the vial. That's your urine. And the guy said, prove it. Prove that I did that. It is not, I know this is weird, it is not illegal to have a bottle of urine in your car, which is a strange right, but you have the right to have pee in your car. And when the cops asked, like, well, why do you have it? The guy said, none of your business. Right to privacy. And it came out that he claimed he had a urine fetish. He liked the taste. He's like the coach on dodgeball. Do I have to drink my own urine? No, but I like the taste. Okay. Sometimes government can restrict speech. So you were right. Those of you who made that bold prediction, you were right. Just a couple other things here, and then we're going to shift gears here. So something called neo-Nazism. Does anyone know what it means? God, it's the Ridley show today. Does someone else know what it means? I mean that in an admiring way. Hi.
These are people who just believe in the Nazi party, but it's here in America.
Yeah, so today, right? These are Nazis today in America. So you're looking at 1941. Does anyone recognize the name Charles Lindbergh? Charles Lindbergh? Have any of you been to the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport? Do any of you know what an airport is? It's where the planes take off. Okay, right. The Minneapolis-St. Paul airport is named after this guy. It's the Charles Lindbergh Airport, okay? The guy made anti-Jewish speeches during World War I. He was widely quoted. He was extremely popular. Probably could have run for president had he not done this little thing. He believed that Jews were dangerous. This is Father Charles Coughlin. He was a priest, and he argued that Jews were dangerous people. Now, do they have the right to say these things? Of course they do. You have the right to free speech. You can go out there and argue, God, I hate black people. Go ahead. It's a little weird, but again, you have this odd right. Just think of the rights you've discovered today. You have the right to have pee in your car. And you have the right to hate a group of people for no reason. Go ahead. Be like my crazy aunt. My crazy aunt just sent me a story about how all Muslims are terrorists. This is my aunt. She's crazy, but she has the right to do that. Go ahead. You have that right. You're looking at a Nazi rally, right? You can see the swastika right there. Does anyone know where Madison Square Garden is? It says Madison Square Garden. Where's Madison Square Garden? Yeah. New York. It's where the Knicks play. This is in America. A pro-Nazi rally in the United States. Those are Americans. A bunch of Germans did not get on a boat and sail to New York for a day. These are Americans. These are pro-Nazi Americans.
When did this happen?
World War II. These are all Americans doing the Heil Hitler. So this is before World War II. This is when Hitler was already in power in Germany. Hitler became Chancellor of Germany in 1933. World War II started in 1941. So he was ruling Germany for 8-ish years before the US got drawn into World War II. These are American Nazis. Okay. Now, again, you have the right to be an American Nazi. Go ahead. You have the right to be an American communist. Go ahead. You have that right. It's just really weird to see this, isn't it? Okay. Now, just a couple of things that they argued. So these things over here are what these people believed in. We don't want to get involved in World War II. Man, let those Europeans kill each other. Why do we want to get entangled in a European war? Let's not get involved. And number two, we don't want Americans dying. Let's not get involved. Americans dying for this foreign war? Nah. And hooray for white people. That Hitler was right. That the Aryan race, now when I say Aryan, I think we had this discussion already. I'm not talking about blonde hair, blue eyed. That's not Aryan. Aryan means white. The white people. So almost everyone in this room would qualify. Is anyone in here not of European descent? Like any of you Asian, African, Native American? Okay, a couple of you are. Sorry. You're not welcome on this team. Yes?
Aren't a lot of Jewish people white in the European descent?
It's a good question. That's a good question. So aren't Jewish people white? No. Next question. No, to be Jewish is not to be Aryan. Jewish disqualified you from being Aryan. Okay. So hate the Jews. What this led to was this argument. Have any of you ever heard of this? Holocaust denial? Ever heard of that? Right? The Holocaust never happened. Did a lot of Jews die? Sure. It was a war. Those camps that were they wiped out, those were prisoner of war camps. America had prisoner of war camps. And what happened was the Allies bombed them. That's why they died. The Jews weren't wiped out. That's not true. Never happened. Right? It's called Holocaust denial. Do you have the right in America to deny the Holocaust? You absolutely do. You have the legal right to be a moron. And I see many of you exercise this right every day. Do you know what's illegal in Germany? It is illegal in Germany to deny the Holocaust. You have the right to be a Nazi here. Do you have the right to be a Nazi in Germany? You don't. It's against the law. You cannot be a Nazi in Germany. Just imagine the very place where the Holocaust happened, the very place where Nazism happened, it's illegal to have those two views today. Whereas in our country, we come to a kind of different conclusion. That is, believe it if you want. You're a moron, but believe it if you believe that the moon is made of cheese. Go ahead. Believe that the moon is made. Believe that the earth is flat. Go ahead. Believe it. Believe that Barack Obama was not born in the United States. Go ahead. Believe it if you want. Believe it. Believe whatever you want. Believe that our current president is a complete moron. Believe it if you want, right? Or believe it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, which, by the way, top 10 inventions ever. Sliced bread? Come on. Without sliced bread, look at what that peanut butter jelly sandwich that you want would look like. It'd be a clump of bread with peanut butter and jelly and then another clump of bread. Gross. How would you fit it in the bag? Yes?
I think Betty White was invented before sliced. It was born before sliced bread.
Betty White was born before sliced bread? Who's Betty White? I should know that name. Oh, Betty White! You're kidding. What? No! That's crazy. Okay. Right. Any questions? That's enough. Okay. We covered a lot today.